maybe like we can do some breathing for the last session, if not a fifth or sixth inning stretch. So my slides are available online at slideshare.net/bloglaga. And I am going to be talking about the crypto enlightenment, Bitcoin, and the age of cryptocurrencies. So as we get started, how many people have heard of Bitcoin? Everybody, yes. How many people have heard of blockchain technology? Yes, so about half, the technology underlying Bitcoin cryptocurrencies. And how many people actually own Bitcoin?
Not anymore.
So remarkably few, in fact.
Or owned.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So as Piero mentioned, I have a multivariate background. Currently I'm at the New School in New York, and I'm working on the philosophy of economic theory. And this is because our traditional economic theory has focused on scarcity as the parameter, all of our existing economic theories. So we're really needing a new philosophy of economic theory if we're going to move to a world of abundance. My thesis regarding the cybercurrency social implications is that cybercurrencies, which I'm lumping together Bitcoin, blockchains, and decentralization, are not just about, number one, digitizing and modernizing money, payments, economics, assets, legal contracts, and governance, or two, accelerating the transition to the automation and actualization economy from the labor economy, but really three, re-exploring our reality and specifying it more as internally determined than externally determined. So the agenda is first to get into an introduction of some of these concepts, then talk about crypto enlightenment, which to me is really about rethinking authority and taking much more authority for ourselves and our communities. Then looking at a philosophy of immanence, which is open, upsided reality, and proposing a theory of crypto flourishing, where scarcity can be seen as a social pathology. And instead, we might prefer an abundance theory of flourishing to help describe the world where we're heading. Then finally, some practicalities and blockchain applications. So if we are thinking, what is the definition of blockchain technology? So it's really, blockchain technology is just another information technology. Just like we can send email with SMTP as a computing protocol, similarly, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies run on blockchain technology as a software protocol for executing code. More specifically, the software protocol of blockchain technology is decentralized. It's hosted on any network node that's hosting the software. Sort of like, and so transactions get confirmed by the software itself, not by intermediary parties like banks and governments. And so it's called a trustless system in the sense that you don't have to trust a counterparty like a person or a government, but you trust the system. And the system is automated and confirms and validates transactions. And this is important with something like digital money, because unlike when I send you an email with an image attachment, you can download an arbitrary number of copies of that. But we don't want that to happen with money. That would be called the double spend problem. We only want to spend money once. And so this network, automated cryptographic network ledger system, ensures that money can only be spent once. So there are three tiers of things going on at the same time in this field. And so we may not, Bitcoin as the first and largest cryptocurrency may not be the ultimate cryptocurrency in use next year, in several years, etc. Blockchain technology, the software protocol upon which cryptocurrencies run, may not be the final technology. But then the third thing, decentralization. It's quite hard to argue that perhaps decentralized models are not something that will persist. So hierarchical models work very well. We've had them since the Renaissance, and that was how we did large-scale activity. We coordinated our human endeavor in hierarchical models. But they have a limit in terms of size and scalability. And so decentralization, blockchain technology, and cryptocurrencies have this unique and new status as a model for orchestrating large-scale endeavor in a decentralized way. So if we think about some important moments in artificial intelligence and computing, the purpose for this slide is to indicate that scale matters. This is how we get to scale. So some important papers over time have been the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the natural sciences, followed by Google's paper, the unreasonable effectiveness of data. So this was a big advent in our artificial intelligence capability because we found that we didn't need to code and enumerate every possible situation in the computing code, but rather what made the difference was just having very large data corpora and running fairly straightforward machine learning algorithms over them. And then fast forward to today, right now, this is an important contemporary paper that the deep learning community has been focusing on recently, which again relates to having large enough scale that then we can perform additional operations. And this paper is this is the unreasonable effectiveness of recurrent neural networks. And so the reason that that's important for blockchain kinds of technologies is that blockchains are a scale and at-scale technology. It really opens up our ability to focus on many more different kinds of problems that we haven't been able to get hold of yet. And so that would include, for example, our biggest genome repository right now is only 3,700 people. And clearly we have 7 billion people. And so we need to scale to, my view is that in health, we need to really make health a big data problem in the same way that Google and artificial intelligence and deep learning networks have made computing advances by making other areas big data problems and running algorithms over them. So similarly, we need to get to a point of 1 million-member human genome databanks. And then we can perhaps start to make some progress on understanding the development of pathology and so forth. Another related problem area is explored by Peter Turchin at University of Connecticut with a field called cliometrics. It's essentially a complexity math, and it looks at things we might want to measure merging science, arts, and sociology in regard to can we measure the amount of liberty in a political system over time. And so has there been, for example, in the case of France, there have been the revolution and a number of republics. But what has been happening is that there's been a fixed amount of political liberty to individuals available over time. And it has a mean regressing characteristic and tendency. And so these are the types of things that I consider a blockchain class problem. They're very large problems that we haven't had a chance to look at yet, and that we are now starting to be able to. So we are getting more power.
Another thing, distribution will help.
Exactly, wireless distributed power. So one of my, so the bigger picture here is that we've already, so blockchains are, in a sense, we already have the internet of information. We've been moving around information freely on the internet in a distributed way since the beginning. And now what blockchains are enabling is a distributed transfer of value. So we're now able to outsource whole additional sectors to the automation economy via blockchain technology for transferring value. And this is in all of our economic, finance, and monetary activity, and also in governance and legal systems. And so really what we're looking for is an orderly transition to the automation economy, and blockchains will be, or some sort of form of secure value transfer will be important for that. So then thinking about the Enlightenment was certainly about knowledge, but also importantly about autonomy. And so Kant, in a famous essay here, exhorts that one ought to think autonomously, free of the dictates of external authority. And so while we moved into a world with lots of knowledge, we haven't really updated our own conceptualization of authority and how we would like to interact with authority. So this is a quick philosophical concept distinguishing immanence and transcendence. So immanence is the idea that something comes from within a system, within a person, a brain, a system, a world, as opposed to as distinguished from transcendence, where something comes from outside, imposed from the outside. And the reason that that's important is that I am articulating that we should move towards a philosophy of immanence in many more contexts. So I see the world in two kinds of realities, and where we spend most of our psychological time is in this baseline region. We have some sort of externally imposed ideal that we're trying to recover. say, an ethical principle or a sense of justice. And so we just direct all of our activity trying to recoup this baseline, which in fact is an ideal and possible, perhaps impossible to achieve. And it's been externally imposed and predetermined. So it's really a ceiling on what's possible for us. And instead, I think that we should think about many more things as a philosophy of immanence, as being immanent, by which I mean open-ended upside. It's very much a mindset of complexity and emergence. We don't know the end point when we begin. We want to be present with the evolving phenomenon. And in particular, I'm arguing that we should be doing that for our own sense of authority. So there's something that I conceive as a crypto-citizen sensibility. So this is getting into a stance of immanence with ourselves, starting to trust ourselves internally to self-decide, self-responsibility take for more kinds of things. And we are accustomed to doing this now with information and entertainment content consumption, for example. We select what information we consume. But we haven't moved this way yet into economic systems and political systems in terms of what we might want to participate in. So just a quick moment about decentralization, because we think we know what it is from the internet, distributed nodes, resilient. You can break up a message, send it around. If one node is fouled, the message will reassemble, and so on. So we think we know what decentralization is. But if we start to think about what it might mean in an economic context, what is a decentralized economic system, then it can be really different. And so I have an example of what this is. So the traditional model is number one. For example, the web property, Reddit. So a centralized Reddit, we're quite familiar with this model. It's just like internet or TV or radio. It's an indirect business model, which is supported by advertising. And we, as users of the site, have no control over how our personal data may be sold to vendors out at the back end. So a proposed alternative to this is decentralized Reddit. And there's a company or a project in San Francisco developing this called DATT.co. And so in this model, there's a sense of pure willingness to host content nodes, work on the software, help distribute news articles that are of interest, and a sense that people would want to publish, content writers would want to publish their content in this decentralized model too. And then it's conceived that the business model would either be that content consumers micropay to consume the content, or that perhaps content providers would provide the content for free. In any case, the margins would be, the costs would be much smaller. And then, so the key point, so a decentralized economic system is a peer ecology. Peers are providing all of the hardware and software and content for this kind of decentralized economic system. And then I thought in mode number 3, we could have actually hybrid economic systems within one web property. So you could go to Reddit just like usual, and you might see icons that you click for which payment system you're wanting to participate in. Where you click on the usual Reddit icon when you're wanting to consume the content for free and agreeing to have your data sold however they might sell it. Or number 2, you might not want your data sold, and you might be willing to micropay via a blockchain micropayment for that content. So here's another real-world example of immanence to make this point more clear. And so this is with emotions. So neurological research shows that when we experience negative emotions, it actually it narrows our paths of action to traditional fight, or flee responses. So there's a narrowing of possibility, as opposed to positive emotions, which have much more of a cognitive imprint and keep open the range of possible actions that we might take from them. So positive emotions are themselves a thing of immanence. Okay, so moving to an abundance theory of flourishing. So when we talk about well-being, the field and area is called theories of flourishing. And some of the key work here has been laid out by Derek Parfit in Reasons of Persons in 1984. And there's his theories of flourishing mainly segment into utility and desire fulfillment, pleasure over pain. But I would like to propose an abundance theory of flourishing. And in this case, I think we should really start to think of scarcity as a social pathology, not just a fact of the world by which we organize our economic systems, but actually a pathology to be resolved. And the way that we would want to resolve that is with a robust, immanent theory of abundance. So in abundance, most abundance theorists thus far have conceived of abundance as primarily resolving scarcity. It's merely a moment of having reached post-scarcity situation for material goods. But there is not at all a consideration of immanence, of the upside, of actualization. Once reaching post-scarcity for material goods, what that might actually mean, and how might we reconfigure ourselves as subjects in society for that. So my argument would be that it's not just that material needs are met, it's that the reconceptualization of life itself becomes different as a result of a post-scarcity moment. And the way that we can tell is that new kinds of social goods are created. Some of these social goods, I talked about peer willingness previously in the decentralized economic model. You need to have peers that are willing to provide infrastructure and content. Other kinds of social goods created by abundance include certainty, availability, contingency reduction, and cognitive easing, or we might provide services to other communities. And so the nation state or the larger polis becomes more of a federated collection of individual self-sustaining communities. So for example, we might have a drone swarm that goes out to provide disaster relief to a neighboring community that has been hit by a storm. All right, so there are some examples of these community resilient models. One is Neighbor.ly. This is a self-directed community bond effort in San Francisco. So the argument is that municipal bonds, because the argument had been that the amount of money required for municipal efforts, like building a road or a bridge or a hospital, because of the funds involved, we had to have convoluted processes with many different experts weighing in and stewarding the process. However, that's very expensive and perhaps an outmoded model. And so in this model, you can much more directly invest your municipal dollars in projects that you care about. Another project is being developed at Blockchain University, and this is a smart contract claims system by which a community might manage, do the actual blockchain-based management of a project, like an infrastructure project in the community, planting trees, for example. There could be smart contract claims for engaging with vendors and assessing participants in the project. So there is a number of, there's starting to be more of a literature about how we might actually rework the elite power structures in government. And so these are some books, some examples of reorganizing how we might actually have engaged with or execute smaller community efforts. Okay, so then the next last chunk here is more just some basics. And so if you were wanting to actually start using Bitcoin, you would go with your mobile phone to the App Store on any platform or in a web browser and download the software wallet. There are many different kinds of them, and they're all fairly easy to use. So if you wanted to know where you use Bitcoin, you can also look at an app for that. There are many different places around the Bay Area. And then some of the other concepts related to this area are smart property and smart contracts. So here we have, the idea would be that just like maybe all smart matter is robofied to some extent, maybe all of our assets become blockchain registered automatically just as a feature of how we orchestrate and administer any kind of physical asset, like a car or a home, and including IP. So we might transfer our digital artwork IP this way as well. And smart contracts are just code-based automation for how we might actually do these different operations with assets and claims. So some examples of smart property are, for example, the block trace ledger that tracks diamonds, and some other kinds of high-value application or high-value assets like medical inventories that will be quite important for this kind of application. There's a key concept called hashing plus timestamping, which might be indicative of how we would completely redo our legal documents industry. And so with the idea is you can take a document or a digital asset of any size, like a genome file or an artwork or a legal contract, and run a software algorithm over it, a hashing algorithm, and at the end pops out 30 or 60 character code that corresponds to the exact contents of that document at that time. You can't back calculate what was in the document, but you can confirm that those were the contents at that time. And then you just post that hash code to a blockchain. So that's the time, date, confirmation of when that asset had that provenance. And so this can be used for wills, for contracts, for IP, for essentially any manner of legal ascertainment that we're trying to do. So it's a very revolutionary idea, the hash timestamping. So some more about smart contracts is that we can really start to automate a lot more of our activity. And in fact, get into much more human-machine collaboration, where the idea of a code contract and a human-based contract are really quite different. Legal contracts, if you're a human party to it, you have at your discretion whether you might like to breach it or not. Conditions might change, the contract might not be enforced, but a code contract will inexorably execute once put into publication. And so that, right now, a vending machine is a quintessential example of this. Every time you put money into a vending machine, if it's not broken, it gives you your item. It doesn't feel bad one day and not do it. It is a robot in this sense. And so that's fine for vending machines, but what about if we outsource entire segments of the economy, like the mortgage industry, to automatically, inexorably executing code contracts? And so ergo, a new area of law called crypto law, where we examine to what extent our current legal systems incorporate these situations of code automatically executing code contracts, or do we need something different? And the societal implication is it starts to change the social contract that we would like to have with our technology. Similar to robotics, we're starting to rethink what is the role of technology in interaction with us, and what kinds of social contracts would we like there. So then blockchains, in fact, with their large-scale secure infrastructure, help with a number of singularity class problems, like friendly AI, gray goose spread of nanotech, and other fears that we have. Because if we start to do everything on blockchain-based smart networks, then any party needing to execute a transaction will have to have that transaction confirmed. And so finally, blockchains are a system of checks and balances in our smart infrastructure that suggests that we may not have these runaway destructive situations that we might have previously feared. Also, space. Blockchains in space. Again, not just a terrestrial class technology, but something we can really start to plug into how we might rapidly and automatedly terraform different kinds of space projects that we'd like to do. And now I'll go very quickly just through a few as I'm ending here. There are many applications in government, IoT, legal, as we talked about, science, health as well. Blockchains are a universal, protected, secure structure by which we might have interoperable EMRs, easily storing genome files, and of course blockchain art, with several different projects in that area. And the idea of doing smart contracts for literacy, for example, is a development economics 2.0. All right, so concluding, I'm proposing an abundance theory of flourishing, where individuals and communities are taking more self-authority for economic and political system determination. I like to call out immanence as an open-ended upside that shifts the locus of our focus to actualization instead of subsistence in economic systems, where abundance is an immanent flourishing, not just resolving scarcity as a social pathology, but itself a new and emergent area for our focus. The individual, the social implications of it for the individual of blockchain technology are I see as being a crypto citizen, taking responsibility for more self-thinking and self-determination about the economic and political systems we'd like to participate in. And as a society, that the new polis is the micropolis, the self-sustaining crypto sustainability community that federates with other communities. Thank you.
Question? Yes.
Nice to see friendly faces here, too.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
By the way, I'm familiar with blockchain and Bitcoin, but this was really quite remarkable. I have a question from a friend of mine who's an associate professor and director of the PhD Business Administration program at the Stockholm School of Economics.
Okay.
And she's really looking for, she's interested in from an organizational leadership perspective. She's not questioning this, she's teaching classes in it now, but she said, how do you think, there's something that she's referring to as the hard fork. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll let you explain it then because I'm not, I'm just sort of forwarding this question. She said, how do you think the community is engaging in this discussion, and how do you get an open source community to agree on such a major change in the protocol? And her interest is